Thursday, June 30th, 2022, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at how the shift from paper assets or financialization to hard assets could be leading the world into a major war, real war, and that is concerning. There was an American writer back in the early 1900s called Randolph Bourne, and he said in one of his essays that war is the health of the state, that when the state is under threat because of massive debts, economic collapse, and other things, social unrest, they resort to war. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going on in the West. What's the only hope we have that this doesn't happen? Well, I actually think the hope is in the United States, because without the United States, such a war could not happen. So we're going to look into that today. Before I start, I'd just like to say that I do not provide WhatsApp numbers on the comment section. There's a lot of bots out there impersonating me. Ignore them, delete them, report them. I try to do my best as well on that side of things. So why am I talking about this? Well, because I've seen a lot of worrying signs right now, especially from speeches, not just from President Putin a week or two ago at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, where he basically really mocked our system, our financial system. He called it a system that's based on mythical values and based on unbacked debt. And I have to agree with him on that. And of course, the opposite of that system is a balanced system where you do have financial assets, but there is an important link between hard assets and the currency and the debt. Basically, he was condemning the fiat currency system that we've had since 1971, the system where central banks and governments can just print and create credit out of thin air, where the taxpayer finances Wall Street and the City of London. And I think that's what it's all about. And why the City of London? Well, because I think the City of London is very important. Many of you know that it's independent of the United Kingdom, much like Washington, D.C. is independent of the United States, and the Vatican as well, independent of Italy. And I'm going to recommend a very good documentary that I saw years ago. It's called The Spider's Web, Britain's Second Empire. It's over an hour long. So what it says here in the beginning of this documentary is this: at the twilight of the British Empire, bankers, lawyers, and accountants from the City of London set up a spider's web of offshore secrecy jurisdictions that captured wealth from across the globe and funneled it into London. And London doesn't mean the whole of London, Greater London. It means the square mile, the City of London. So I think trillions and trillions, and most of the offshore money that goes through the system in the world comes through the City of London. The Bank of England, of course, turns a blind eye to it. And I will also recommend a book. It's called The Empire of the City: The Secret History of British Financial Power by E.C. Nutt. Here's the book, and not very long. And it's related to the documentary, I would say. So I think the only hope we have is that the United States, via NATO, does not fall into this trap. But unfortunately, I think the United States and the UK are pushing for war, and it's not going to get better. So I'm going to give you some proof that this is happening. So just a quick article here that I saw this morning. I wasn't even looking for it even before I decided to speak about this. It says Ukraine war. This is from BBC. That's the propaganda arm of the British state, of course, BBC. It's just like RT or all the mainstream media in the States. Ukraine war. UK pledges an extra 1 billion in military support. So there you go. They're pushing for it, despite the fact that we get news and headlines from major conservative papers that would normally be trying to push or root for the conservative government. But we're getting this. Britain is fed up, bitter, and practically broke, and it's all going to get worse. So that's from the Telegraph. So here's the governor of the Bank of England. Britain suffering faster and steeper downturn than Europe, warns Andrew Bailey. Bank of England governor says the country is suffering very large national real income shock. So the health of the state is not good. So what do you do in that case? Well, you foment a conflict between really where you know the wealth is going to go, i.e. to hard assets, and what's the country that symbolizes that wealth. I would say it's Russia. What's the country that symbolizes paper assets? Well, it's not even a country. It's a city called the City of London. What about New York? Some people say, well, New York is the financial center. Well, yes, but I think London's very powerful still. It's where the manipulation of the currencies occur in the foreign exchange market. It's the biggest foreign exchange market in the world. And gold and silver, of course, are part of the foreign exchange market. As you can see here by this Reuters page. When I started out in this business in the late 80s, I was always like intrigued why gold and silver would be on the main FX page. So yes, we've seen that NATO is increasing the amount of troops. It's like 10 times increasing it. So it does look like there's something going on, right? That they're preparing for war. Yes, but one thing that really concerns me is this speech here recently given by the Chief of the General Staff at RUSI Land Warfare Conference. And this is from the UK government website. So if they were not okay with this general giving this speech, it wouldn't be here on their website, right? So it says the Chief of the General Staff, General Sir Patrick Sanders' speech at the RUSI Land Warfare Conference. I'm going to put a link to this speech below in the description, and you can go through it. I think you might find it as well online on YouTube, the actual video of the speech. But all I'm going to do here is read the introduction of his speech, and then I'm going to go to the conclusion. It sounds really like this guy's a warmonger. So this is what he says. I stand here as the first chief of the General Staff since 1941 to take up this position in the shadow of a major state-on-state land war in Europe. As I do, I'm reminded of the words of a man in whose footsteps I tread, in relative obscurity and recognizing the impending danger the nation faced. The then Brigadier Bernard Montgomery wrote this in the pages of the magnificent publication Royal Engineers Journal of 1937. And this is what Montgomery said. We have got to develop new methods and learn a new technique. There's no need to continue doing a thing merely because it has been done in the army for the last 30 or 40 years. If this is the only reason for doing it, then it is high time we changed and did something else. So The other thing this General Sanders said is that we need to increase spending in the military, in the army by 40 billion in the next 10 years. And he's very hawkish. And it makes me wonder if he's thinking about the fact that we live in the nuclear world, because how can you have a normal conventional war in the nuclear world? This is what worries me about this general. But let's skip here towards the end so you can see what kind of man this guy is and what he's pushing for. He says, and my final message to you is this. This is the moment to defend the democratic values that define us. This is the moment to help our brave Ukrainian allies in their gallant struggle. This moment we stand with our friends and partners to maintain peace throughout the rest of Europe. This is our moment. Seize it. So yeah, it is very concerning what's going on. It's not just here in the UK and the US. I think the EU is really going along with this because their economy is in tatters. They've got negative rates. They've got inflation in double digits in places like Spain. You've got PPI almost hyperinflating as well in places like Norway, Spain, and Germany, PPI above 30%. The same thing going on here in the UK. As you saw from those articles that I showed you. This worries me that, yes, they're going to resort to war because that's the health of the state. And as Gerald Celente has been putting it for many years, when all else fails, they take you to war. So a lot of times I try to give you my view on things from my experiences. So this, of course, is something I've never experienced before, a major war, and hopefully we won't. And I don't know. I think the most important thing is to keep your head down, batten down the hatches, and I think the concept of making a fortune in the markets, you need to rethink that. You need to rethink into a paradigm that is more how to maintain your wealth in such an environment. So yes, it's not going to be a good time for us, the general public, if this happens. Of course, it's going to be very good for the bankers. It's going to be a new trick up their sleeves, aside from the fact that they were bailed out in 08 and in 2020 by us. I guess the only hope is that we as the public don't fall for it. But I think it's really hard when they're pushing so, every aspect of society like that people interact with, like the media, government, and academia, and Hollywood. They're all in with the people that are pushing for this. So on that cheerful note, let's look at where the markets are this morning. It's 9:15 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold trading at around 1815. It's down a couple of dollars. High's been 22, low 12. Silver's unchanged around 2075. High's been 2083, low 68. The Dow futures is down 250 points, 0.8%. NASDAQ 100 future is down 140 or 1.2%. And the S&P 500 future is down 1% or 38 points. FTSE 100 index is down 124 points or 1.7%. Eurostoxx 50 is down almost 2% at 34.47. To the currencies, sterling is up 0.25%, 121.56. The euro is unchanged, 104.47. The dollar is down 0.25% versus the yen at 136.20. The dollar is unchanged versus the Swiss franc, 95.46. The dollar's down 0.2% versus the yuan at 669. Let's look at the Russian ruble. Yesterday, I forgot to quote the Russian ruble, and why is that? Some people thought that I was trying to not point out to the fact that the dollar dropped below 50, that I was trying to yes, that I was trying to not show where the ruble was because I didn't like it. No, I've been quoting the ruble for over a month. It's just that uh, for the last 5, 6 years, I never really looked at the ruble. So I forgot yesterday. But anyway, actually, the dollar has rebounded versus the ruble. It's up about 5% this morning. We're back up to 54.60. Yes, yesterday the ruble made a multi-year high, or the dollar made a multi-year low just below 50. So we'll continue with the other currencies then. We've got the Aussie dollar up slightly at 68.88. We've got the dollar up slightly as well versus the Canadian dollar, 129.07. And the Kiwi dollar is up about 0.2% at 62.28. So let's look at the commodities now. Yes, of course, commodities are key in the major war, and so is gold, because people don't really accept paper because the states that are fighting the war, they could end up like disappearing. And do you really want to take a promise? Because that's what paper or fiat currency is. It's a promise from a state. So think about that as well. Anyway, crude oil this morning is up slightly, 0.25%, 108.80. That's WTI, of course. Brent is up a third at 112.60. Copper is down about 1% at 374, and US nat gas is up 1/8% at 650. To finish off, we're going to look at the bond market. The US 10-year yield is down 3 basis points at 306. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.